Hello there. In this video we're going to cover some basic line drawing commands in detail. So let's get started. We'll start with a new project. We'll keep it metric, standard millimeters, and we will create it. Okay, well that was quick. As an aside for you, I've changed my theme from a dark screen to a sky screen, a sky blue screen. And here's how you can change yours. If you go under File, go to Options, go to the Colors tab. Mine just happens to be up there. Sometimes you'll be in these other ones. So the Colors tab, and I changed it to sky. I had been using a high contrast, which isn't bad. But sometimes it's nice to change it to something easier to look at. Now the ones I have found not easy to look at are things like this light theme. These lines here match the color of the background too closely and it's hard to see them. So this one looks like a pretty reasonable one. I notice they show up a little darker, and that's what you want, is to be able to see those. So you can OK it or apply it. I'm just going to OK it, which does apply it. And I am ready now to demonstrate. I'm going to start with the line tool. Of course, every sketch starts with a 2D sketch. Every project. We will choose the XY plane, which represents the build plane, or the build plate of your 3D printer. And of course it rotates us so that we're looking straight down at it. Now one thing I try to remember to do is when I look at this orientation cube, top is sideways. I like to rotate it so that it is straight up and down. I clicked on that arrow to do it. So now I'm looking straight down at it from the front of the machine. And that's the way I want to orient it. Let's start drawing a line. Now a lot of these commands are what they call chained. They create chains, and what that means is that I'll demonstrate it. I'll click on it one time with my left mouse button, and now I'm locked into it. You can see it's got the focus. I have a yellow dot on my screen, and of course I have the X and Y coordinates it is showing me, but I kind of ignore those, and here's the reason. As I go to the right, I'm getting a negative X. Usually I would expect that to be positive, knowing, my first, second grade numbering line system. And when you go up, the Y coordinates go negative as well. To me, that's just backwards, but anyway. Use it for reference to distance. Don't really try to worry about the positive and negative because it's not helpful. Okay, so let's start drawing a line. We'll start here somewhere. I just click on it, and I'm not holding the mouse button down. And now I'll move to the right. Oh, by the way, as I move to the right, you see three things. You see the length of the line, which is 22.923 millimeters. You see that it is moving to the right 180 degrees from that arced line down here. You see 180 degrees. If I were moving to the left instead, it would be 0 degrees. So the thing's expecting me to draw lines from right to left. I tend to work left to right. So the third icon, now that is 0 degrees, is one that represents parallel. And that is also known as a constraint icon. It looks a lot like this one right here that my mouse is on. A horizontal constraint. And what that means is when I have this line like this, and notice it kind of locks or sticks into that straight across mode, and that gray icon appears, that gray with the red. If I were to click that right there, that would constrain that horizontal, and constrain means locked into. Okay, So let's draw one pretty far across. We'll constrain it to horizontal, which means it's locked into being a horizontal line. I just simply left clicked, and I can see right here that represents a line that's going to stay horizontal. You actually have to remove that horizontal constraint to make this line anything but horizontal. Now this line can be closer to the center point or further, but it will always be horizontal because of that constraint. Now this one I'm going to bring down here, and I'm going to make it vertical, or actually you see that it says 90 degrees. The length is 167 millimeters. This can be a big object. The next constraint that has come up looks like a perpendicular constraint. So if I look for that up under the constraints list of things, I see one that looks just like it right here. And that is a perpendicular constraint, which means it is perpendicular to that line. I believe this line. Because if it were this one, and I drew it here, it's not even touching it. So it is from the line that it's chained to. So we will do that. And that will lock it in. That will always be a 90-degree angle. So I just click and I go across. And somewhere there would be nice. I'm going to click. I'm going to put a mistake in this. See, if I were to go all the way across and have another perpendicular, at some point this thing is going to ask me, yeah, right there. Notice there's a nice vertical line from the end of the first line I drew. That would allow me to set the length of this properly right there, so that all I have to do now is draw straight up and down to it. That's really nice, and that is 90 degrees and is perpendicular to the line that I started it with. Now if I click, go straight up, I should have a rectangle. And I will. 90 degrees. So notice when I lock it to the line I started with, I get a green dot. That means the green dot represents that they're going to connect when I click. Whoops. I clicked it, but if I zoom in really close, I missed. When I clicked it, I moved it as I was doing it, and it went off a little bit. That's okay. We will fix that. We'll just do a quick undo. And that undo is over here. It just undid that line. We'll go over to line. We'll start it right here where the green dot is. Run it all the way up. This time I'm going to hold the mouse button down so it doesn't move, and I'm going to click on it. And now, if you zoom into it really close, using the wheel mouse button, of course, that yellow dot tells me that they are joined. And I don't see a little bit of it hanging out off the edge. And I also see an icon here that tells me it is constrained vertically, because that's what this represents. This right here, vertical constraint, is what that is. So perfect. Now, we've drawn a rectangle. Let's change it. There is a command. I'm going to show you a command over here and a command over here that will help you greatly. I'm going to show you the trim command. So, by the way, I'm still locked into drawing lines. Notice this line thing is still on. Even though I created an object here, I could draw. I'm clicking. I can still draw lines like crazy. There, I just drew another object. Once it became an object, then it took me out to where I can start drawing lines some more somewhere else. So they're not chaining to each other as much once I've created a standalone solid contained figure, contained object. But I want to get rid of all that. So what I can do is I can hit the escape button. Upper left corner of your keyboard is an escape button. And when you tap it, it takes you out of these modes, whether it be line drawing, circle, arc. The escape button is your friend. I'm just tapping it like crazy. So you can hear it's not doing any damage. It's already taken me out of what I was in, and now I can move on to the next thing. So I'm going to go to the trim command. Now when I click on trim, it locks me into a trim mode, and I can go and touch a line, click on it, and it will remove a line a little at a time. Wherever you see the dashes, that's the line that will remove. Well, let's say I had a lot I wanted to remove. Oh, and I got rid of that little point too. If I wanted to get rid of all of these without just doing it one line at a time, which is kind of pokey, well, what you can do is click and hold the left mouse button down, and as you move it holding the mouse button, you see these breadcrumbs, and everything you touch with the mouse from that point on while holding it down erases whatever it touches, makes it go away. There, now I just lift up the mouse button and that's gone. Now remember, you're still in trim mode. You could destroy the work you want to keep. How to get out of it, once again, is the escape button. There, I hit escape and I'm out. Okay, I'm back from the phone. So the next thing I want to show you is how to join two lines when you don't hit this perfectly. For instance, I'm going to trim off this line right here. Remove the dimension, perform the operation. I bet it's talking about this dimension right over here at 150. So let's do that. Let's remove, oh, I'm still in trim. Yeah, and that won't let me trim that one either. So I'm going to hit escape, get out of this. And I think they're talking about right here, this little dot. First of all, there's a parallel thing on it. So if I right click on it and say delete, and if I okay, I've just hovered my mouse on the dot, and I'm going to hover it on the red parallel, and I right click on it. I say delete, and I'll do the same thing up here. I've just hovered over it. I've moved my mouse to the parallel icon. I know there's two. I think they're trying to say it's parallel from that one to that one, but I will hover it on that point, right click on it, say delete. Okay, I believe I can trim this line off now. Let's find out. Click on trim, click on the line. Ha ha ha. That's what it was. These yellow dots represent constraints, as well as these symbols like parallel. In fact, I believe I'm going to hit escape, get out of trim mode, that these yellow dots are when I hover on them. When I hover on the yellow dots, it shows me the constraints buried within them, in addition to this parallel one. So, okay, what I wanted to show you in the line draw mode, we'll connect to right here with the green dot, which means I can click on it. I'm going to go up, and normally instead of just joining it like that, let's say I made a mistake and I missed. I went way over here and I clicked on it. And I went, oops, now we don't want our rectangle to look like this, so I'm just going to hit escape to get out of the line drawing mode. Okay, and now I'm going to zoom in. I want to join this line and this line together. Well, here's where constraints come in handy. Here's all these constraint commands, and the one I want to bring to your attention is a coincident constraint in the upper left corner of this block. Very commonly used one. So I'll click on it. What that does is, if I put my mouse so I can see a little red dot right there and click on it, and then I go over to this one. Now if I hold that on there for quite a while, I get like a little menu thing. So I don't want to take too long. I'll click on it, and look, it just joined it right there. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. Okay, so that's how you join these two lines together. And because they're constrained at these lengths, it just brought over this new line and made it match everything else to turn this into a rectangle. Very clever, AutoCAD, Autodesk. Very clever. Okay, so I've shown you this. Now I'm just going to get rid of the whole thing. Let's see if we can trim it all to pieces. Ah, yes. Very good. Except, look at that. The curve being extended trim has a dimension. So I'll hit cancel. These constraints protect this from being erased. I believe, though, I can... Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to escape. I believe I can highlight the whole thing and hit the delete button on my keyboard. And look at that. I did it by highlighting the whole sketch and hitting the delete button on my keyboard. That got rid of it. Okay, so I'm just gonna, with the wheel mouse button holding it down, move this over here a little bit. Okay, let's go over on the drop box here under line. There are other drawing tools, like for instance, spline. What is a spline? Well, I'm going to click on it and show you. Say like you want to draw some kind of a French curvy line. You set a first dot over somewhere here by clicking on it, and then you move your mouse out. Say I'm going to move it there, and I'm going to click on it again. And as I keep moving it, notice it's curving. I click, I can do like little short clicks. Whoops. What happened was while I was drawing it, I clicked on the finish thing that came up. So I'm going to try this again. We'll just highlight the whole thing, hit delete, start with my spline again, and here's what I did. So I clicked on it, then I left clicked, but I accidentally clicked on this by accident, so I'm not going to do that again. I'll just try to avoid it. Yeah, see, I was trying to turn this sharp corner and that was in my way. Now I can turn the sharp corner. So what it does is it kind of averages out a curve. And by the way, I'm going to click on it now. That's the okay to end it. It gives me an average of a curve depending on my X and Y position of my mouse when I click on it. And it can be adjusted. For instance, I can click and hold on this dot and move it. I can adjust it a little bit. This is a very handy command. It gives you some free art capability. So like say I wanted to round this corner up a little bit, I can do that. It's very free form. Okay. So I wanted to show you that. That's a spline command for drawing splines. Now I'll highlight the whole thing and get rid of it. So what are the other splines in here? Well, we had spline control vertex, which allows you to have those little dots, circles that I was using to adjust it. Spline interpretation is like this. We'll just start drawing a kind of a curvy spline thing here and we'll OK it. This one, instead of having little circle dots, has a bunch of lines. Where'd they go? Oh, here we go. If I click on one of these dots, I can now move this around. Or I can grab it and shorten it up, lengthen it out. It's like control handles that I can use for adjusting it. Like say I want to adjust this one. I can adjust it, or I can grab the line itself and move it. Very powerful. If I wanted to adjust this one, I can just grab the line with my mouse, click and hold, and slide it up and down, or I can give it a little bit of a twist. So it's a spline, but it's just a different way of editing it. There we go. And it just, again, uses mathematics to average out everything. So that's that type of spline. Equation curve. This one you can actually do a math function on. That's handy. That's a little more advanced. I'm not going to show you that one yet. But when I get into doing parabolic curves, we'll use that. And then a bridge curve. That's for smoothing a curve between two curves. But I'm going to keep it simple. We'll just show you the line and the two splines. Okay, so we've done that. Now let's go over circle. A circle, of course, is pretty simple. You just find where you want the center of the circle to be, click, and then pull it out to about the distance you want it to be. Click on it again. And then, since you're still in circle mode, you can create circles all over the place. Okay, and you have like some limited drafting tools here. Say I want to put that at a right angle to those two. I can, and I can also make it the same size as the one below. You can see with the dotted lines how they do that for me. And as I rotate that yellow dot, I can make it grab references from that circle right there, or I can make it grab a reference from the circle below, or I can put an angle and grab a reference from the big circle. Make this even bigger. So depending on how you rotate this and where you put your yellow dot, you can grab references, like say I want to make it the same size as the circle to my left. Done. Perfect. Now, if you want to adjust the sizes of these, you use the dimension tool. So you click on dimension, you click on the circle itself, then you move this around to where you want it to appear, like right there. Click on it again, and there it is. Click on it again, and you can change it. There, now it's 100. Now, I can do the same thing with this circle. I can say I want this one to be 30. So I clicked on it, I can say 30. Now watch what happens to the circle to the right. It didn't do anything. I almost thought it would because I wasn't sure if I was constrained to that one or not, and they're not. But if you had circles constrained to each other, they would all adjust. So same thing with this one. We'll click on it, click it again, make that one 30. Beautiful. Again, click on that, let's make that one 15. And click on that. We'll put the measurement outside of it this time. Click on the measurement, that one can be 30 as well. And last one, I click on the center dot. It did nothing. If I click on the curve, interesting. I'm still in dimension, and look what has happened. Nothing has happened. So I'm going to right click on it. I'm just going to say OK. And now I'll go back up to my dimension, touch the curve part, click on it again to lock it in, and one more time make this one 40. Okay, so I've set the dimensions to these circles, and I've placed them accordingly. Alright, now we'll erase all of them. Oh, I have to get out of dimension by hitting escape. And we'll highlight all of them, hit the delete button. Great. So what's else is there? There's circle for tangent and an ellipse. Let's cover the ellipse. So basically to set an ellipse, you put your mouse someplace where you want it, the center of the ellipse to start. And you click it one time. Then you move it out the distance that you want its outer diameter to be, how tall you want it. Now let's make it crooked and make it this tall. You click it again, and then you move down somewhere in the middle and you decide how wide you want it to be. You can you can still make it taller than wide, but you're really setting the two dimensions. with this. And so I want it to look like that, so I'll click it, and there you have your ellipse. Now I believe if you go to dimension and click on it, you can set your top dimension there, and if I remember right, oh, that's top dimension again. Just click on dimension, click on the top, and here's your width. So we can manually type that in, make it 25 millimeters, and the upper part of this is basically radiuses. Let's make it 90. So the radius in its largest part is 90, and the radius of its smallest part is 25. Okay, that's how to do an ellipse. So hit escape, everything's clear, highlight the whole thing and hit delete. Alright, let's cover the circle tangent. It will draw a circle within 3 lines. So what we'd have to do, go over to spline, change it to lines, 3 lines. So we have a line here, and we put a line, oh, I'll click on it again. Let's see, we'll start it there and make it go that way. And just for grins, we'll put a line here to there. I wanted to show you they don't have to touch. Okay, 3 lines. Now, if I go over and say circle tangent to 3 lines, instead of finding the center point, which we don't know where that is between these 3 lines, we will touch this line and click, we will touch this line and click, and we'll touch the 3rd line and click, and look what it does. That's a beautiful thing. So I'm going to escape to get out of the circle drawing, and I think if I can move, yes, I am moving that line. I can even move that line beyond where this is touching it. It's just knowing to draw it right across. So look at that. That's a nice thing, and it's sizing it proportionally between all 3 lines. This line doesn't even have to be that close, nor does this one. But this one does, because it's constrained. Although, I think I can lift it. Yep, I can lift it above 2. I'm going to zoom out a little. So look at that. Interesting thing. You can move these lines. It doesn't have to be touching them. It just has to constrain to approximately exactly to the distances that they represent. This one representing this side, this one representing this one, and this one the 3rd edge. Interesting command. And we'll put it all like this so you can see it. There. Interesting circle command. Okay, making sure I've hit escape, highlight the whole thing, kill it. It's dead. It's dead, Jim. Okay, let's go over to the arc command. And we'll start with the first one, the most common one. To draw an arc, basically you have a starting point, then you have an ending point, and then you have a radius. Okay, so I'll click right there, there's my radius. I can do a smaller one. I'll click right there, and we'll click right there, and then we have a radius here. Okay, there we are. And I'll hit escape to get out of the drawing arc mode. I can move that dot, the radius dot, around for those curves. I can also move the radius itself and adjust it likewise. I can even join them. Look at that. That's handy. And I believe I can break that join by putting my mouse over it. I see where it says constraint, but I'm going to right click on it and say, no, delete is ghosted out. So I'm going to put my mouse on the constraint icon itself and right click. I'm going to click on it and right click. Ah, how about that? And I was able to delete that. So I left clicked it and then I right clicked it, which I think put the center point command up. We'll talk about that another time. I was able to delete it. So now I should be able to move this away, and I can. They are no longer constrained. But if I click and hold this and bring it over here and I get a green dot, they're back to being constrained. And again, if I just hover over it and I left click on this and then I right click on it, I can now delete it. One more time. We'll constrain it. We'll hover over it. We'll left click on it, then right click on it, and we can delete it. And now they are no longer tied to each other. They are no longer constrained. I'm repeating that left click, right click combination because even I forget to do that. And it will throw you for a loop when you sit there, you have them constrained, and you just right click on it and, oh, well, it worked that time. But sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, like right there, it didn't. That's because I didn't left click first. So I'll left click on it, then I'll right click on it, and there it is, delete. Okay. So that's a simple arc. We'll highlight the whole thing and delete it with the delete button on the keyboard. Arc tangent. Let's see what that is. From another entity. Click the endpoint of another entity to start the arc. The arc is tangent. Okay. So we need a line. So let's throw a line up there. Right there's a line. And hit escape to get out of it. Okay, so now we hit the arc, which is the arc tangent. We'll click on the end of the line, and look at that. That's what it does. It allows us to draw from another entity. Now, I believe the other thing that this would be handiest for is if you had a line over here, and you wanted, whoop, I hit escape, and I wanted to put an arc between this one and this one. Well, the arc tangent looks like it would work very well. Click on there, click on there, and look at that. Nice curve all set. I'm going to escape to get out of that. And I'll just kind of click away. That looks very good. Okay. I'm just clicking and holding the dot and kind of shoving the whole thing over. Yeah, I can adjust it a little bit here, a little bit there. Perfect. Okay, so that's what the arc tangent does, is it draws an arc between one or two points. It doesn't have to have a second one. It can just be one by itself. There, I'll trim it off. Trim it, all trimmed. Hit escape to get out of trim. And the last one, arc center point. Creates an arc defined by its center point and two end points. Okay, so this one, rather than doing a left and a right, I'll click on it here. It gives you a center point. That's how I'll click right here. And then I move it out, say about that distance. I click again, and then I can start drawing my arc like that. There's my final. So this one here lets you choose a starting point for the radius. You draw out your distance from the radius, and then you finally end with the curve. Kind of clever. So that's that one. Hit escape a couple times, get out of that, highlight the whole thing, get rid of it. Rectangle. We normally use the 2-point rectangle, which means you click somewhere to start the rectangle, and then you move your mouse across and click again, and then you get this rectangle. That's your standard rectangle. Okay, and then it can also be adjusted. You can also use, don't forget the dimension command, you can put exact dimensions on it. Okay, so I've escaped. I'm going to delete that. The next rectangle is a 3-point rectangle. And what that lets you do is draw rectangles that are not 90 degrees to the XY coordinates. So let's choose that. So what we do is we start out with our first dot, and then we can draw, say, like right across here, our second dot, and then we put our third dot somewhere there. But here's the beauty of this rectangle. I'm going to escape and erase it. That looks normal, doesn't it? Delete. What if we were to make our first dot here and our second dot here? Click right here, and then our third dot runs in a rectangle shape on an angle. So you can do an angled rectangle. That's what this 3-dot rectangle does for you. Okay, so we're going to hit escape, highlight it, hit delete. What else do we have? 2-point center. So this one, the 2-point center is you put a center dot in the middle of something. You click on it, and then you move out and up. And everything is based off the distance from the center. And then you click it, and there you have it. Okay, so I'm going to escape, get rid of that. That would be the center dot rectangle. 3-point center rectangle. Your first point is the center. Ah, this looks like it combines the 3-point with the 2-point. Actually, the 3-point with the center point. This looks like an interesting one, so let's try it. Okay, this is the 3-point center. So it looks like the first one is the center spot. So I've drawn a center. And now I'm going to draw my angled rectangle here. I'm going to click again. I'm going to move out, click again, and there we have it. That was our 3-point center. So it starts with the center, you move out, get your first dimension, then you move across, get your second dimension. That's handy. That's handy when you need to do it from the center of something and angle it out. So hit delete on that. Slot. Now we're going to cover the 4 slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots. Slot to center. A lot of times when you're machining, you create what's called a slot. So I'll just start one here. I'll click here, and I'll move across. Click here, and then I'll move downward or upward, doesn't matter which. And I'll click to lock in the slot. Okay, so I have drawn a slot. Now I'm going to erase it. I'm repeatedly hitting escape before I highlight the thing, just as a reminder. So that was the 2-dot slot, which is left and right. Looks like slot overall. You start with the left side, then you go to the right side. Kind of looks like what we just did, but let's do it again. So we'll do a starting dot, we'll go across out, and we'll go up. I think this one, I just hit escape to start it over. I think this one, you can go out and on an angle and up. Yeah, it was very similar to the last one. I've hit escape, highlight, delete. So instead of 2 dots, it's 3, but it... Oh, I see what the difference is. The difference is, if I had a line here, and I had a line over here, okay, the first slot, center to center, would be if I put my mouse here on the tip of that line, put my mouse on the tip of that line and went up. Center to center. Center of the arc is on top of those 2 lines. Okay, so now I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go to the next one, the slot overall. I believe if I start here on the end and here on the end, and I go. Notice instead of the center of the circle extending past the lines, this is contained inside the lines. So it's putting a slot inside of an area rather than outside, or using the ends here as center posts. Now they are endpoints. And I click there and that puts it right in there. So they're not extending past the lines on this type of a slot. Okay, Control. And I had a thought after I created this video to make this more apparent with the slot center to center versus slot overall. With slot center to center, which I'm clicking on now, from this top of this post to this top and then lift up, that's what slot center to center looks like. And if I went to slot overall and put it down here so you can see the two compared to each other, there is the difference. I wanted to show that to you. I thought that would make it easier to understand the difference between the two if you could see them at the same time. Z to undo. Slot center point. So if I had a center point like right here, I click on it and I go out to this one, click on it, and then I go up. Not only is it doing a center point, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel, by the way, to show you. The first click is to the center of the slot. The second one is to the center of the radius of the side, like in this case the right side. And the third click locks it in. Okay, Control Z. So that is the slot with 3 where it's centered on the center of the entire is the first click. The center of the radius is the second one. And the third one sets the distance for the radius. Control Z to undo. I bet the next one, 3-point arc. Look at this one. So if I had a third line, say right here to here, we'll make it 90 degrees. Okay, escape to close it. And let's say this line is down here somewhere. Okay. The 3-point arc, I believe if I start here and I go down here and I go up here, look at that. I'll zoom out a little bit. That's what that does. And I click it to lock it in, Control Z to undo it. So what if I took that 3-point arc command right there and I went all the way across first, here to here, and then back to here, and then up. Escape. One more time. Let's go starting, far end, and then down to my third point, and then up. That's what that does. And now click it and lock it in. So what that has done, your first point is the start of where the radius is. The second point is the far right-hand side of it, or the far other end. The third point is how far down you want to bend it. And then the last click sets how wide you want it to be. Okay, Control Z. We'll do that one more time. Your first one is your starting point, your ending point, how far you want to bend it, and how wide you want it to be. Just like that. Control Z. Now, I bet the last one, center point arc. Creates an arc defined by center point, 2-point center arc. Okay. This looks like we start in the middle this time. So let's do that. We'll start in the middle. Let's go out to that point. Let's go out to that point. And then, look at that. Then we set our width on the last click. So the slot before this, the curved slot before this, went left, right, middle arc, lock in length. This one starts in the middle arc, works its way outwards. Kind of the opposite. It accomplishes the same thing, but sometimes in your drawing it's easier to click on these objects in different orders, and that's what this is accomplishing. Control Z. Okay, now the last one I want to show you, and I've hit escape so I can erase these. The last one is the polygon. This is cool. So I'll click on it and say, like, it comes up, wants me to do 6. So I'm going to take and put my mouse in the center here. I clicked and I'm going to move out. I'm going to rotate as I go. And look, I have a hexagon. So I'll click right there and I have a hexagon. And how big is my hexagon? Well, let's force it by clicking on dimension. I can click on, say, this dot, and then move up. I can have an overall dimension of 500 because I just made it. But what if that's the wrong thing? So I want to get rid of that dimension. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to see if I have a delete. I don't. Let me try it again. I don't see a delete. But I think if I just hover my mouse on it and just hit the delete button, nope, it didn't do it. I played with it enough that I managed to right click on it enough that I can hit delete on it. So we set a 500 between those dots. Well, the other way you can dimension this, which is more normal to me, is to click on a line, click on it. Notice it's giving me a distance from here, but if you go all the way across and click on that line, you can now set a dimension there. I can set that to 500. Or I'm going to click on it, make it 300. There. So now we can do the width that way, as opposed to corner to corner. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape. I think what the problem was I had was I was still in dimension mode. So I'm going to hit escape like crazy. I'm going to right click on this, and that's what it was. I was in dimension mode trying to delete it. You need to be out of these modes, out of these commands, in order to do things like delete. Very good. So now we know how to change its dimension point to point. We know how to do it from side to side. What if we just wanted to do it from one side? So I'm going to click on dimension, click on this line, go up, and I'm going to click on it again and make it 200. There. You can also make it a dimension that way. Okay? That's handy. Now again, if I try to right click it and delete it, it won't let me. But if I hit escape, see a dimension's chosen. If I hit escape, right click on it this time, now I can delete it. Perfect. So that was how to do a hexagon. Let's do an octagon. So we'll delete it. We go over to polygon, and before I start drawing, number of sides, I'm going to type in 8. And I'm not going to hit done. I'm going to go over and start drawing it. Right here. So I'm going to start drawing it, and look. It's a stop sign. Now click it and lock it in place right there. I could draw another one right next to it if I wanted to. And so on and so forth. This one looks like it's crooked. In fact, I'm going to do Control Z to undo. And I'm going to go back to polygon and make sure it's still 8. I'm going to draw a small one, but it's going to be crooked. I'm going to hit done this time. So I wanted this to be straight. Well, that's where these come in. My top is upright. I go over to, say, I could choose vertical or horizontal. Doesn't matter which one. I'm going to choose horizontal for this one, and I'm going to click on a horizontal line. And now it's horizontal. This one here, if it's a little bit crooked, I'll click the vertical and hit vertical. It already is constrained vertical, so I don't have to. Okay, so I'm gonna escape like crazy, highlight this and delete it. So polygon, what if I wanted it to be a three-sided shape? Yes, you can do a triangle. Wow, four-sided shape seems redundant, doesn't it? Yeah, it is. Because you have all of the tools in the world to do four-sided. Five-sided? Why not? There's our pentagon. About a 33-sided shape. Kind of looks like a circle, doesn't it? It will zoom way out. Way out. And there they are. 33. Okay. And of course, if I hit dimension and do one line like this, click on it again. Look how many millimeters that is. I'll make it 20. Now it's real tiny. And it's way over here. So we'll zoom way into it. And it put way out in the middle of nowhere. So I hit escape, get everything cleared up here, highlight it, hit delete. It's gone. Now, if I go to the home position and click on top, it takes us back to where we were working. So I can delete all of these. And that is just the explanation of some of these shapes. Let's do one more, fillet. No, we'll say fillet for when we start doing extrusions. No, I tell you what, let's do a fillet. Let's do a fillet anyway. Let's make it a 3 for a triangle. Draw ourselves a triangle here and just briefly show you what the fillet command does. It really works with objects that are extruded, but it also works with objects that are not yet extruded. Say like I want a 2 millimeter radius fillet. What a fillet is it's a way of curving a sharp point. There are 3 sharp points on this, and I want to put a fillet between this line and this line. I've clicked on this one already. Now I'm going to click on this one, and right there it created a 2 millimeter fillet. Let's make the fillet bigger. Let's make it 15. And let's do it from here to here. There's our 15. And from here to here. That's 15 as well. Okay, that's what a fillet is. And we can close that. That's a 2-dimensional fillet. It will also do 3-dimensional. It will fillet an entire side of a sharp angle that is of an extruded object. So that was fillet, and we'll cover those other ones later because they are actually used for different purposes. Okay, that'll take care of this video for the introduction to these line tools. I've been all around the globe trying to protect